Mr. Rajamouli. How are you?
I am very good. Thank you very much. How are
Thank you for
you?
doing this. I'm
It's
fine. I'm
my
fine.
pleasure.
I'm a little tired. We've been bopping all over the world. We went to Los Angeles, Paris, China, and Tokyo, Japan. So, and now I'm back home in New Zealand for 2 days for our New Zealand premiere. You know, you've been on these.
I think, sir, it is at least for me. I get so tensed up before the release of the film. At least this keeps my mind occupied. The promotionals keeps me occupied.
Yeah, exactly. Because otherwise, before the film comes out, I don't know about you, but I'm always very nervous. And if I don't have something to focus on, I'd just be pacing back and forth all day.
Absolutely the same thing here, sir.
Well, I look forward to our dialogue. And once again, thank you for doing this. I know you must be very busy with Varanasi now.
Yes, sir. But it's an absolute pleasure.
All right. Well, if I can reciprocate, when your new film is coming to market, please keep me in mind. I love to have a dialogue with other filmmakers. I think we need more of that.
Thank you, sir. We'll definitely do that. Thank you. Thanks for the offer. First of all, I would like to thank because you made me the first person, or probably the only person amongst 1.45 billion people, Indians, to watch Avatar Fire and Ash. That feels very, very special. Thank you very much for that.
It's our pleasure, and thank you once again. Thank you so much for doing this. I think it's important for filmmakers to talk and compare, similarities in their mental creative process and in their technique and so on. I'd love to come to your set. May I come to your set sometime and watch you create your magic?
Oh, that would be an absolute pleasure, sir. You're most welcome. And I mean, not just me, not just my unit, my entire film industry will be thrilled.
Well, I can't think of anything I'd rather do. So I think you're shooting for a while, right? On the new film on Varanasi.
Yes, sir. It's almost a year now, and another 7, 8 months to go. Yes,
Oh,
we are in the middle of the shoot.
okay, plenty of time. Well, tell me
Yes,
when
sir.
you're doing something fun. I don't know, something with tigers.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, definitely, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Sir, watching Fire and Ash was an absolute pleasure. I,
Well, thank
I
you.
mean, hats off to you for creating those complex sequences, those visuals, those characters. I mean, I can
Thank you.
go on and on. But
Thank you.
but for me, I mean, I was like a child in the theater watching them, the Wind
Good.
Traders,
Good.
Ash people, the new characters. Warang was absolutely stunning. But I
Thank
thought
you.
for me, after I come back from the theater, when as it wouldn't leave my mind, your film wouldn't leave my mind. What really got me hooked was Jake's moral dilemma.
Hmm.
I thought Avatar, the first Avatar had it. It was so strong. Jake's moral dilemma between
Yes.
the Navi and his own people. I
Yes.
thought, can he ever beat it in the
Right.
coming films? Can he ever beat it? But I think in this, it is much more stronger. I mean, if I talk a little bit more about it, probably I'll be a spoiler. I don't want to be that, but
We'll dance around the spoilers. I call them teasers.
yes, yes. So my question, my actual question is that Avatar has like innumerable subworlds in it. There are so many characters, strong characters, fun characters, complex characters, and I'm sure you have many more characters in your mind than in the film.
Correct.
So when you have so much of information, so much of playthings around you, which one do you give precedence? The emotional crux or the characters, or can't you separate them? I want to know at the writing table what drives you forward.
I think, look, for me, a really critical part of working with the actors to create these interesting and rounded and quirky and unique characters is the writing process. So on these films, I worked with other screenwriters to shape the story. But then I took it and I ran with it myself, and I wanted to individuate each character. Now, some of the characters were new, and some of them were for actors I'd worked with before, like Sam Worthington and Zoe Saldana, because they were in the first film, and Stephen Lang. And I wanted to hear it in the sound of the dialogue that I knew it would sound like coming from them. So and there's a lot of me in each one of the characters, the stern father, the misunderstood son, even the strong women. I don't know, maybe I was female in a number of past lives or something. For some reason, I can relate to that. But I think, the more likely explanation is that I've always been attracted to strong women. My mother was a very strong figure in our family, as is the case with a lot of people. Um, so the writing gives me something useful to help the actors. I always believe it's the director's job. Yes, you're supposed to be the visionary and the architect and all that, but really in the actual moment of creation, it's really, I feel I'm just there to be helpful. What do you need? What helps you? What prompting or what discussion or what creative dialogue helps the actor in that moment. And every actor, as you know, is different. So you have to key in to their different creative processes. But it gives me a way to be useful to them, having written the characters and thought through all of these conflicts and I think of them as collisions. The characters are colliding with each other. Every scene there's some tension. Maybe they're attracted but something's keeping them apart. Maybe they hate each other like Jake and Quaritch, but maybe there's something that's pulling them together that has to be resolved. And it's those little discoveries when you go along in the writing process. One of my big discoveries, I love that you focus on Jake's moral dilemma, because that was a critical part for me. And to me, there are even dimensions within that. His dilemma is, I'm a warrior. I'm supposed to defend my people, but if I take them to battle on a big scale, as he knows he can do, he's done it in the past. If he gathers the clans together and if he takes the battle to the enemy, he knows they're technologically superior. They have vast numbers, and many of his people will die. And that's the great dilemma of leadership, right? And Jake has to resolve that for himself. But he also has the dilemma of being a father. He now can't be that young, reckless guy that just jumps onto a creature and tames it, and he's got a family, he's got a responsibility. And he knows if he brings them into battle, his own sons, his own children could die. But yet, and it kills him, it tortures him to not fight. And of course, as an audience, we want to see the gunslinger go out and dig up the guns and go back into town and shoot the bad guy. We know it's a myth that goes back thousands of years, the reluctant warrior, right? So I'm not creating new ground with that, but I thought that somehow juxtaposing him as the reluctant warrior and the father confronting a generational issue with respect to, being this legendary figure, I thought that might be an interesting problem. And Sam Worthington, from the first film to the second film, he became a father. He has 3 sons. So it was much more available to him to play the heartbreak of the loss of a child, which they're, coming out of movie 2 into movie 3, they're under this cloud or this shadow of loss. Anyway, thank you for that, because it's one of the things that was my focus as the screenwriter on this.
As you were mentioning, two of the beautiful conflicts in the film was between Miles and Jake, and also, of course, between Neytiri and Varang. I'll
Exactly.
come to the first one. In the first film, we were very clear. I clearly hate Miles. But
Right.
as you slowly started going forward, and especially in Fire and Ash, uh, I want to hate him, but I can't. I want to side with him. I want to love him, but I can't. So I think you took a special affinity towards Miles. It feels like that. The conversations between Jake and Miles were like it happens a couple of times in the films. Were like beautifully written. There was fun. There was a lot of angst going through them,
Yes.
but the conversations were fun. They were beautiful. But I think you have a special affinity towards Miles. Did you start falling in love with him as you started developing the character?
I think I always loved him, but I kept him very simple in the first film. And then I threw some obstacles in his path in the second film because he's sort of essentially reincarnated in a new avatar, if you will. He's taken flesh again, same personality, same mind, but now he's questioning, he has this big identity crisis. Am I still that guy who was human and hated this world and was at war with it? And now I'm in the body of my enemy? And how does he reconcile that? How does he reconcile having died with the memories of having been a father of this boy? And the way I played it, as you can see, and it plays out in the new film, is that he clings to that fatherhood as a way of cementing his identity, essentially saying to himself, yes, I am that guy. I am a legitimate extension of that guy. I am this boy's father. He chooses that. Even though in movie two, he kind of rejects it. He crushes his own skull to sort of try to tell himself, I'm a new person. I can be whatever I want to be. But he goes back, he's drawn back to that role and that character that he used to be. So I had a lot of fun with Stephen Lang um, around creating Miles, and then obviously there's a new layer here, which is that Jake and Quaritch have to ally with each other briefly to try to protect Spider. So I kept sort of thinking, well, what is Spider? What is he in all of this? And I realized he's actually the intersection point of all the different character pathways. He's the one that glues together Quaritch and Jake in a way that becomes complex. Because otherwise, they're just two guys trying to kill each other for 3 hours, and that's boring, right? So that became more interesting. He's the one that gets caught in the middle of Neytiri's hatred of all humans. She becomes essentially a racist. For her, it's if you're blue, you're good. If you're pink, you're bad. And I just chose pink because, it could be pink, it could be brown, it could be some shade, some warm tone versus their beautiful navy blue. Um, and so Neytiri, Spider gets caught in the middle of all of her hatred. Spider has a relationship with Kiri, and Kiri becomes a very important character as well. So I suddenly realized that he was the glue that glues everybody together in this story, which puts a lot of pressure on our young actor, Jack Champion, to be very nuanced and to have all these different relationships.
Yes. In ATD, I mean, when we first saw her in the first Avatar, the first visual of her was like so beautiful. You fall in love with her at the
Mm,
first sight. And here in Fire and Ash, the moment you see her, you know that her heart is full of hatred, pain
yes.
of losing
Yeah.
her
Yeah.
son.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, feels bad for her. That is not how you want to see her.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And within few minutes, within 15, 20 minutes, we get to see Varang, and you immediately know these two women are going to come together. And from that moment, I am just waiting for the face off. How are these women going to come together? But the end that you gave, again, I can't give the spoiler, was like, wow, that really hit me hard.
Thank you. Well, let me share an interesting story with you. So, I don't think I'm the best screenwriter in the world, and sometimes it takes me going through the telling of the story with my cast over a period of time to find things that other people would consider obvious in retrospect. So it seems pretty obvious that Neytiri and Varang should meet in battle in the first attack of the Ash people. It wasn't in the script. But one day I was sitting there and I said, Veron really needs an interesting creature that's different from everyone else. And that wasn't in the script either. So the designers ran off and they came up with this amazing kind of four-winged animal. And then I said, hey, wouldn't it be great if Neytiri and Varong fought in the middle? And everybody was like, oh, it's not in the budget, it's not in the script. I'm like, no, but it's going to be great, guys. Neytiri could just fly at her and they can fight like two eagles. And of course, it's one of the best action moments in the film. But, to me, what's wonderful about the process is because performance capture is relatively inexpensive compared to live action, most of our cost is in all the finish work, trying to get the CG up to a level of some degree of photoreality. So the performance capture is relatively inexpensive. We just go on for months, finding our way through the story. And so we just made that up and we just captured it and we had a lot of fun with that. So anyway, for me it's a constant process of discovery. I almost feel by the time I get in, and I don't know if you feel this as well, by the time I'm in post production or very late in the process, I feel like the film is just telling me what it is. That I may have gone in with strong ideas, but as I get through it, it's like, all right, now the film is telling me what it must be, and I just need to accept it and go with it and try to reinforce that. I almost feel like the way an actor must feel working with a director, which is okay, you come in with a lot of ideas, a lot of energy, a lot of passion, but at a certain point, you're going to get guided and shaped toward an end goal. I feel like that's happening to me. It's almost like the actor's energy is now coming back to me and telling me what the film is supposed to be. And I think we all grew up with the kind of the Hitchcock myth, right? That everything is perfectly architected, everything is perfectly storyboarded. And man, I would hate to live in that world for years on end. All the work's done up front. That's boring.
Yes, absolutely, sir. As we start capturing the sequences, as we start putting them together in the editing table towards the post-production, the initial ideas, many times where we started, seems they are not working. A new shape is coming through, and
Yes,
it is very difficult for me to either bring the original idea to the form or just give into the new idea. It's a constant struggle for me. I can't make the
right?
choices so easily.
Yeah. Well, this is where your filter, your very refined filter of sensibility that you've curated within yourself and with your team around you, that's where that comes into play, right? Does this fit or does it not fit? Does it does it push us further in the direction we're trying to go or not? And I would say that's instinct.
As you were talking about VFX, I want to ask this question. Um, don't get me wrong. I have utmost respect towards the artists. I think they should be paid their worth, their time, their artistry. No doubt about it. But the VFX cost has been like shooting through the roof. I mean, what
Yes,
costed X dollars just a couple of years back, the same shot, the same complexity is suddenly going through like 4x, 5x. Uh,
yes.
I mean, you have a big budget, probably you can absorb the cost, but for filmmakers
No,
like that,
I
it is
mean,
like,
we do have a big budget, but it's still it's going up. It's becoming unsustainable.
and also on the other side, we are seeing the big studios, Rhythm and Hughes and MPC, the big studios are folding because they are not able to take the financial strain. So how do you propose, how do you think or suggest that is there a solution to this problem? How do we go forward with this?
I think you're talking about the big existential risk of the current marketplace. You and I make films for theaters. Theater revenues have come down significantly globally due to initially COVID, but that really was just the opening of the door for streaming to start to reprogram people and habituate them to the convenience of taking in all their media in the home. And so we see about a 30 to 35% drop globally in revenues. At the same time, as you say, uh, VFX, all production costs are going up, but VFX are going up on almost a log curve. And a lot of the big vendors are going out of business. They're not able to have a positive margin. So I see this as a huge risk to the kind of fantastic, whether it's science fiction or fantasy or epic or historical films. I'm even thinking like a Titanic. These are the kind of films that it won't be possible for studios to greenlight anymore, and that really worries me. And I don't think there are easy answers. I think we just have to continue to fight to put to defend that amazing experience in the cinema, because I think the cinema experience is sacred. Streaming's fine. And to the extent that it can provide budgets for writers and actors and all that sort of thing and keep the work going, that's great. We need that. As long as the audience remembers that there's something that happens in a theater that isn't like in the home. And people always talk about the communal experience. I think that's part of it. But I think it's a question of the balance of control. When you're in the home, you have you can pause it, you can stop. You've got a remote, or if you're consuming it on a smaller device, you can pause it. So you don't have that unbroken chain of experience coming in through your senses, right? And I think it's that thing of, if you want to have that sense of transport, that sense of wonder, going to another place, inhabiting other people, because that's really what we do in the theater. We inhabit other people through these wonderful actors, through these performances, because our minds are programmed with, some kind of mirror neuron neurobiology that says, I'm going to feel what you feel. If I see you emoting, I'm going to feel what you feel. So the depth of that feeling, I believe, is much greater in a cinema than it is in the home. And we have to defend that. I mean, we could get into the details of the business, and maybe generative AI may play a role in bringing costs down and so on. But the important thing, I think, is for us as a civilization is to keep that flame of cinema, of this incredible art form, keep it alive.
Yeah, I see a common connection in Pandora. When once we enter into the cinema, I think all of us get interconnected. All the
Mm-hmm.
audience get interconnected with each other.
Yeah.
Not physically, but all of us are in the same emotional plane or something. Like we get
Yeah.
connected.
Yeah.
Coming to that point, I don't know whether if you remember, Avatar had the single most biggest collection from my city, Hyderabad, IMAX, Prasad's IMAX.
Mm.
The Avatar ran for 1 year.
Wow, that's great. At the IMAX at the IMAX in Hyderabad.
Yes,
Wow,
IMAX
fantastic.
in Hyderabad. It's no longer IMAX. That's a different issue, but at that time it was. Um, so you were talking about the cinematic experience. I'm coming to that problem. So the big ticket films like Avatar or all the big entertainers are still finding the footfalls for the audience into the theaters
Yes.
in the big screens, but the big screens form a very small percentage of the overall theaters. And yourself mentioned the footfalls are coming down. So what do you think we should that should be done to increase the audience interest in coming to the theaters and watch the films? Is it the sole responsibility of the content makers to create such a content, or is there something that can be done in the exhibition sector itself? Can be something radically be done with the theaters that the audience find it interesting to come to the theater to watch the films?
I think, and I'm going to propose a small partial solution. I think, in terms of the quote unquote content creators, you and I mean, we pour our heart and soul into these massive films, and we employ thousands of people. I don't know what we could do more than what we already do, frankly. Um, I think we should look at maybe reducing the barrier to entry to young people coming in as filmmakers with VFX. Maybe generative AI can help with that, maybe some other solutions. Democratize the tools and let more people be doing the type of fantastic filmmaking that you and I do. I think that's part of it. But the partial solution that I would offer is, in the home or on any device anywhere, streaming is a 2D medium, whereas theaters can be a stereoscopic 3D medium. And everybody sort of feels like, well, that had its day and then it faded down, and there are a few exceptions that come along from time to time. But it really wasn't done properly when it was at its apex. And it was held back by two things. One, the studios made a conscious decision to assert control by doing conversion in post-production versus shooting natively, and that limited the quality of the 3D itself on the screen. And secondly, the exhibitors have never properly stepped up in putting in the new projection technologies that allow the image to be bright enough in the theater. If you solve those two problems, then everything could look like Avatar. I mean, maybe not in terms of the world building, but in terms of the image clarity and quality. And that's something that you can't have in the home. So to me, that's part of that premium experience that separates the movie theater from the home experience. We could revisit that as a solution. And by the way, you and I should talk about shooting in 3D. I want to see you. I want to see those slow motion tigers coming at me in 3D, uh, and everything else that you do so beautifully and so wonderfully.
But I have
What?
one final question. Before I ask the question, one thing is like I'm really, really looking forward to go and watch Avatar again, Fire and Ash again, with lots and lots of people all around me, getting connected with them emotionally, but watching your
Right.
masterpiece on screen. Just
Well,
can't wait
thank
to
you.
see it. My last question is like uh, one terrifying thought that's been there on the minds of on my mind and lots of filmmakers around the world like me about this generative AI disrupting the process of filmmaking. So do you think, are we in the near future or far future or whatever future, are we at a place where the visuals can be created the exactly way that you envisioned on paper by using the text prompts or image prompts? And if it happens, what happens to the creative artists? What happens to the content creators
Exactly.
like us? So I want your thoughts on that.
I I want to be. I need to be very clear in my wording around generative AI. We've never used it on the Avatar films. Our process is a very linear process. It starts with writing, it goes through acting, and then we take those captured performances and then we build on them. We don't change the performance at all, but we just build the world around it, and we do all the lighting and the cinematography as a kind of a downstream process. So it's a bit of a strange process, but it's effective in creating these characters and these stories. I believe that generative AI is very dangerous if it eliminates that sacred process of working with and through the actors to tell stories, because I find that to be a feedback process that's very positive for me and for the film. And I would say to young filmmakers that are drawn to these inexpensive tools that allow them to get their thoughts, their imagination into an image very quickly, I would say stop, spend time with actors. Some of them don't even think about acting. They don't, I mean, there are young filmmakers coming up that they don't even know any actors. They think they can bypass that step. This is very dangerous, and I don't want to see those movies. And the reason I say that is because generative AI is trained on everything that's ever been done, but it can't be trained on that which hasn't been done, right? So you could go give a text prompt to a Gen AI model and say, show me something that looks like Avatar. It can do that. It couldn't do that before 2009, had it existed then. So what else is coming out of people's imaginations, out of their dreams, out of their imaginative process that it will not have been trained on? So that's one thing. And the other thing is, if you take everything that's ever been done and you put it into a blender and you turn it into